As she speaks, if you have questions and if you can, you're welcome to jump in. You can also use the chat window to type a question, and then when there's a good moment, I'll ask the question to Leigh. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll also have some time for questions. So there'll be plenty of time for questions. But unless you're talking or asking a question, I'm going to ask you to leave your audio on mute. All right. So can you all see my screen with the Elevate Graduate Certificate? All right. So very briefly, the Elevate Graduate Certificate is a fairly new program offered by the University of Colorado at Boulder. And it's a certificate. There are 16 credits total, and we have a mix of 1, 2, and 3 credit hour courses. And the program is designed for K through 12 teachers, K through 16 language teachers who want to learn about technology integration in the language classroom, going beyond small technology integration projects and looking at a stronger integration with the standards, using technology integration models, creating lesson plans, getting feedback, testing them out, etc. So it's a fairly rigorous program. It's designed to be very flexible. So it's fully online. People can start the program at any time, complete the courses in any order, apart from the capstone course. And you can take one Elevate course because you find it interesting, or you can take all the courses. The courses that we will have this fall, we have a course called Virtual Immersion. It will be the second time we offer it. And that's the ad for the French course. And that's the ad for the Spanish course. And it's a 6-week course for teachers whose Spanish or French is rusty. And so what we do in this course is that we pair you up with a native speaker in the language. We use a service called Talk Abroad. And so you go online and you choose your partner. Some students decide to meet with different partners every week. A lot of the students find a partner and stick with a partner for the duration of the course. And so twice a week you go online, you meet with a virtual partner, you have a discussion. The discussion is recorded. And then you have to go back and listen back to the conversation, write a reflection. And we also discuss short readings about language proficiency as a class. That's a 1 credit hour course. 6 weeks. The next course starts August 20th and goes through October 1st. It's $480. And on this slide, you have the languages that we have available right now. And then my last slide. In the fall, on September 3rd, we will offer the Language and Technology Foundation course. And this one is a 3 credit hour course. It's 10 weeks. And this is a foundation course in technology integration in the language classroom, where we talk about standard-based technology integration. So we work very closely with the revised ACTIFL standards. We talk about the 21st century skills and themes, how we can infuse those themes in our lesson plans. The technology integration model we use is the SAMR model, and Leigh will talk about the SAMR model. We have a week on ADA compliance and universal design, and so and we have a week on copyrights. And built into the course, we also have a Google Drive and a VoiceThread crash course. So I will email everybody a recording of the webinar. There will be a link to our website. Everything you need to know about the program is online. Voila. So Leigh, I'm going to let you share your screen, and I'm going to give you the floor. Perfect.
Going slow on my end, so as soon as I can, I will share.
Yep. So this is Leigh. Leigh took a course called Tools in Practice that we offered last spring. And in Tools in Practice, it's a 10-week course, and every week we looked at the different family of technologies. And so the project that she's going to present today is a mix of a project she was already doing, and then she infused some technologies into the project. Can I help you? Okay.
No, it's kind of locked up on unsharing yours, so it won't let me share mine just yet. So we're kind of in cyberspace limbo.
Okay, let me do this. How about this?
That might help. Now it might let me do that.
Oh. Because I'm the presenter, I can unlock the screen.
Oh.
Good.
Okay. Now am I shared now?
Yes, you are. All right,
Okay.
so with no further ado, Leigh, on student murals using Thinglink and Blogger.
Oops, and of course, we're at the end of the game here. Let's go to the beginning of the game. Hi, everybody. I'm Leigh Sapp, and I teach high school Spanish in District 214, which is a suburb of Chicago, actually. I actually live closer to the Wisconsin border, but I teach a little bit closer to the city. Not a member of CPS, but we are definitely a college prep area. And I was kind of handed a project, a traditional project, when I took over the Spanish 4 curriculum. And this is kind of a summary. I know you can all read, so I'll just try and hit the highlights. This is more for your reference later. But when I first took over Spanish 4, my boss came to me and he said, well, you can do whatever you want, but you have to keep this project, because he's a history teacher and he thought it was pretty cool. So I needed to take it over, and basically the project was a culminating experience at the end of studying the Mexican Revolution. We talked about how muralism came out of the Mexican Revolution as a big political movement. And we kind of connected all the concepts of the Mexican Revolution and the three great muralists of Diego Rivera, Siqueiros, and Orozco. We kind of took that concept of how to make a mural and what murals mean and what they symbolize for people. And we talked about modern day murals and even graffiti. We really covered the difference between what's the difference between a mural and a graffiti is permission. The kids do this in small groups, but it comes during AP testing. And so we kind of joke that this is an art therapy project for the kids, because they're all mostly juniors and seniors in high school. So at junior year, those of you who teach high school, you know that it's really a rough year. The kids are subjected to a lot of testing and more testing. And then we land ourselves in the AP testing weeks. So this gives them an alternative approach to try and synthesize all those concepts, lets them kind of get back to their roots. They're like, oh, it feels like kindergarten again, because they actually get to pick up a paintbrush and they have to revisit the concepts of mixing paint colors and which kind of brush to use. So it's definitely kind of a fun project. It's a real cool adventure, and I'm always amazed at some of the products that they come up with. Just to kind of recap here, we do cover the Mexican Revolution, and we cover the three great muralists that came out of that. We highlight their different works, different techniques that are used from the different colors. I have a little sample there just so if you're not familiar with the muralist, you kind of see the differences. And we do just talk about how muralism itself evolves as a political commentary of the people, and how murals are done for the people. They're done in public buildings so that they're seen by the people to express certain concepts. So it's kind of cool for the kids to get the difference between a work of art that's just hanging in a frame in a museum versus art that's done so that the whole world can see it. Our Spanish 4 curriculum at Prospect High School is an AP preparation curriculum. We cover tons of cultural topics. We basically work with Latin America, Mexico, and Argentina, and a little bit of Spain. We cover everything from Che Guevara, Eva and Juan Perón, the Dirty War from Argentina's times, the dark political time, the desaparecidos, the people who were stolen. Disappeared, sorry, I should say. We cover immigration from all sorts of Latin American countries. We talk about legal immigration, illegal immigration. It's quite the hodgepodge of cultural concepts that we talk about. We even cover day laborers, migratory workers, and such. So they have tons of concepts, and when it's May and they're high school students and they are dealing with the ACT and the SAT now even, and then they have their AP tests, and then now they're even going to be looking at finals in June. This is a lot of information. So we try and make this mural project a sneaky review of all the materials, all the things we've covered all year long. Our little ulterior motive is that these students are all AP prep students, meaning 80% of our students will actually go on to take AP Spanish language next year, that exam next May. And part of that test, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is that they have to do a cultural comparison, presentational speaking. For that test, they get 2 minutes to look at a topic, and they get to think for 2 minutes, and then they have to speak. just spontaneous presentational speaking. My students as juniors in Spanish 4, this freaks them out. They're like, there's no way I can do that. I can't do that. That's impossible. So the sneaky little goal of this project is to get them prepared for that. We ask them to speak for 3 to 4 minutes in the hopes that they work through the nerves and that they're able to actually ultimately reach that goal of 2 minutes of really good, cohesive, synthetic speech, or not synthetic speech, that's the wrong word, speech that has a lot of synthesis in it. This project really is kind of a baby step towards that ultimate goal next year. Like I said, their AP, they're prepping for that, but they're not quite ready. So we try and I've tried to scaffold this big, crazy, daunting task with a whole bunch of smaller components. The students have all these concepts that they have to review and reflect upon. They've learned about the mural making process, what that entails, all the different techniques, the frescoes, the legalities of everything, all this stuff. And then I'm asking them to compare and contrast that with all these topics that they've learned. So they do choose one thing and they kind of whittle it down from there. But ultimately, it's really trying to get them to think about what they've painted and why they painted it that way, so that hopefully, ultimately, the goal is that the mural itself can be used as a visual outline of sorts, so that they're not using a little cheat sheet, that they're not feeling like they have to memorize an entire paragraph to speak. It's really meant to try and use that visual as a means of weaning them off a note card or an outline or something similar. Having done this project for, gosh, over 15 years now, every year I had the same personal issues that, conundrums, conflicts that would crop up and rear their ugly head. The first thing is I have kids that stress out. They're all college-bound kids. They're all AP prep, and they're taking a whole bunch of AP classes, and they have all these exams these 2 weeks in May. They stress out, and what ends up happening a lot, I tell them, you need to write down every day and reflect about your writing and what you painted and why. They don't do it. They blow it off and they think, I'll do it. Oh, it'll be fine. And then they end up doing it all at the last minute, trying to write paragraphs. They're all separate and they're all busy, so they can't talk. And they kind of end up overlapping, and I might write about the same thing that John wrote about because we don't have a chance because we blow it off into the last minute. Some kids have always hid note cards behind the murals, like thinking that I won't see them reading it. And then ultimately, there's always the one kid that just gets called in sick, which kind of defeats the whole purpose anyway, because we're not trying to stress them out. We're actually trying to help them through the process so they don't get stressed out. So that's problem number one. Problem number two was that I would end up with, I have 4 sections of Spanish 4, and my colleague has 4 sections as well. So I personally end up with about 40 murals. They're gorgeous, but they're huge, and I don't have any place to really showcase them. And heaven forbid, I can hold about 6 to 8 of them in my classroom. And then after that, they end up going, sometimes the janitor will take one because he hangs some of them in his garage because he really likes them. Sometimes a student will take one with them to college. But other than that, they end up in the dumpster, which really makes me upset because the kids worked so hard on these. And then the last part is that the parents don't get to see what their kids have done. The community doesn't get to see it. And I have no means of sharing this because I'm always amazed. As much as the kids go, I'm not an artist. I can't do this. This is so hard. I failed painting in kindergarten. It's really amazing that with working with groups of 3 or 4 students, what they're able to create, it's really kind of outstanding. So these issues have been going on for the past 15 years. So when I was taking the Elevate course 50/30, I had to come up with a final project, my technology integration project. And I found myself asking, could technology help me out with some of these issues? I ended up using Blogger to address the issue of student writing and to try and build in some accountability for the student writing. In the Elevate course 50/30, we actually had to keep a blog, which was a great learning experience for me. So I decided to use it as a format for digital writing that would have the kids. I liked Blogger because it allowed for more than one author to contribute to the same blog. Sources like Medium did not do that. You only could have one author. So Blogger allowed for more than one author. So we went with that. The kids were able to add content, add images, add little videos and whatnot. And it really gave a big audience for their writing. And we'll talk about that sort of accountability in a minute. The other piece of technology they ended up stumbling upon when I was teaching an iPad class is Thinglink. And I really do love this site. It's wonderful, and you're able to take an image, in this case an image of the mural that they've created, and you can add audio video to that image and you can collaborate. The last part was my archiving of all this great student work. And in the end, ended up just using a basic Google site in order to do that so that I could have all that information. So again, just to highlight Blogger, it allowed me to formalize the writing process. I was able to require students on Blogger, I required them to make certain pages. They had to have a page that was their sketch of their project. They had to have a page for each day. They had to have a dictionary page of terms that they came across. And I was able to see all the different contributors and see who had written what. It was really kind of great. And it really allowed for a broad audience. And I tell you, these kids, these digital little millennials, they know that when they're writing and it's going online, they know it's there and they want to shine and not look stupid. So this was a wonderful attribute of Blogger. Thinglink allowed you to take the image, and I'll show you that here in a minute, allowed you to take an image of the mural and attach audio recordings, and they were able to collaborate so that different students were able to record on the same Thinglink so that I could record, my partner could record, and we would see exactly which part of the image that we would be talking about, so there was no repetition in the final presentation, which was probably my favorite part. Google Sites allowed me to archive the actual images of the blogs, their blogs, sorry, images of the mural, their blogs themselves, and then also the Thinglink images that they did. The SAMR model, as she mentioned earlier, we definitely have used this, and my district has adopted this tool as well. It works from the bottom up like a ladder. You have substitution, which is when technology is a direct tool substitute. For example, if you get a one-to-one iPad environment and you're using, your kids are using Notability to write and take notes directly on a PDF, something like that is just where you're substituting instead of, you're using a stylus instead of a pen and the iPad instead of paper. And then you work up to augmentation, where you have greater functional improvements of the substitute, of the actual technology. Gives you a little bit, it makes it a little bit better. And then you progress on to above the line, which you don't always have to live above the line, but everybody strives to get there every once in a while. The modification, when tech is allowing for significant task redesign, so you can create new tasks based on the technology. More so. And then redefinition is kind of the ultimate, where you really have a whole new task. You couldn't have done this before. And I really feel that this project has escalated and transformed into the redefinition part. Blogger and Thinglink, without those two technologies, I would not have been able to do this project to the level that it was done. Like I said a little bit before, with Blogger, the students were able to collaborate kind of like with a Google Doc. They could collaborate whenever they wanted to. They could contribute to the group's blog whenever they were able to, based on their crazy testing schedule and their extracurricular schedules. And then with Thinglink, they were able to record their actual voice in preparation for the presentation, once again, whenever they could. Some students did it in class. Some people did it during their lunch hour. They went out in the halls. Some people did it from home, from their bedrooms, and some people did it. One kid, I think, even did it on the bus coming back from a sporting event. These things, this kind of collaboration would not have been possible at all. Blogger, yes, there are other ways to do that, but I really did enjoy some of the components this added to. But the Thinglink, there's absolutely no way to recreate that experience. At least I'm not aware of it. Maybe there'll be something soon, but this is a great way to take the image and actually record the audio on there. Here's an image you can see. This is just a screenshot of one of the basic blogs. The students, now ultimately, would it have been nice if they had changed the date and their settings and whatnot so that they had it in the target language? Yeah, that would have been great, but I didn't think of that until actually I'd already jumped in. So something for next year perhaps to consider. But each day they had to make, this happens to be the last day, the final day. So you have a final product there of a mural. These are the tarps that we used to paint on so we didn't make the floor all messed up. And they were supposed to write a little paragraph about what they painted and why. So each day you can see here on the side, they had an outline, first day, second day, third day. So each day they would post an image of the progress that they made as they went along. This was the basic template from Blogger. It's perfectly fine. I had no problems with that at all. The kids did find Blogger a little cumbersome to work with. They were kind of annoyed and said, oh, Senora, this is so 2004. I just really liked it because of the feel that it was a diary feel. So I thought it was really exciting. And I'd done a lot of research on blogs and use with art as far as following your artistic process. So I really did think it was really the best thing. And then some of them, as you can see here, they really kind of dug into it. Once again, they didn't quite change all their settings and whatnot, but they actually went in and found different backgrounds and different options and really kind of, tailored it to their specific likes, dislikes, and kind of really just got into it, which was really kind of fun to see. This is actually an image of the Thinglink itself. This is a student mural here. And then all these little, there's a technical term for it, and the Thinglink training. I call them doohickey thingamabobbers, but I think there's a technical term. I'm not sure what it is. But these little doohickey thingamabobbers, when you click on them, it actually is attached to a recording. So when you go to Thinglink, you have the image itself, and then you're able to see the different little recordings. And in this case, we have a student where she's... La familia que acepta el deber de la sombra se quedan en una jala de hora que se dice los presos de embrutecimiento, porque muchas familias que adoptaron bebés durante esta época no querían saber de dónde vinieron. So this is just a quick little sample. So you see this was a mural that was about Argentina and the dirty war and the desaparecidos, or people who disappeared during that time. This is just a little sample of how they're able to record right onto their image, which is really kind of fun. Whoops, and I just lost everything. Sorry. So there are different options, but for the most part, I just found, and as you see, that was just a video that they made. I told them they didn't have to be on the video. Some of the kids chose to, some of them chose not to. That didn't really matter to me. I just wanted them to be talking and practicing their writing for the formative practice, or sorry, practicing their speaking formatively for the final presentation. And then in the end, I was just able to take all the student work and put it on a Google site with a project description, a link for each of my class periods, and they could have, I had the picture of their mural itself, and then a link to their blog and a link to their Thinglink, so that I could have all the student recordings sampled there. So it was really a neat experience. The biggest component of this that I'm most excited about was the digital writing. And digital writing and putting it out there, it really cast the net for a wider audience. I had one group that was so into this. Their blog had over 600 hits from 16 different countries, and every day they came running into class with the update, Senora, Senora, they had another country, and they just were very excited. The parents got really involved. We have typically involved parents because it's a good group, but they were all digitally sharing their students' blogs on Facebook and other social medias sites, and then some of our tech people even got excited about it and were tweeting it out. So the kids really kind of, like I said, they just felt really empowered. And it was really kind of a whole different layer the technology brought to this that never was before possible, and I've never quite experienced this of all the years I've done this project. As far as the ACTFL standards go, I'm sure you're all familiar with those. We hit on all three modes of communication. We have the interpersonal when they're working in their small groups and mixing colors and telling everybody to paint one thing here and one thing there. They're doing their writing, and then they're doing their presentational speaking. As far as communities go, actually we have a newcomer student center, which is a school within a school. We have students that have just recently come from Guatemala or Mexico or Nicaragua, and they spend time in our newcomer center. And my AP students actually are pen pals with these students. Well, when those students kind of got wind of what was going on, they followed it because they thought it was really cool what they were doing. So that's kind of a small community within our community. And then obviously the parents and students were excited to share their work. Cultures, as far as we studied there, we had the Mexican muralists, the 3 that you saw. Of course, we did touch on Frida. You can't talk about Diego Rivera without touching on Frida too. And we did talk about Pilsen. For those of you not familiar with the Chicagoland area, there's a neighborhood. Chicago's made up of a whole bunch of different neighborhoods. Well, Pilsen is historically, traditionally, the Mexican neighborhood, and they have tons of just beautiful murals that are there. And we do not take a field trip as part of this mural project, but what does happen is our humanities course takes a field trip, and some of the kids have gone with the Spanish 1 class, and they've seen some of these murals in Pilsen, which are just amazing. They take up the sides of an entire building. So there's always the kid that comes back from the field trip going, Senora, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine how much work that was to make that mural. It's like the whole side of a building. All we had to do was like this 3-foot by 2-foot mural, and I thought that was so much work. I can't imagine how much time. So they really do get appreciation for these cultural products. And then connections. We really do connect not only the history of the countries, and we talk about art technique. And I work with the art teacher, with her collaborating every year just to make sure that I have my terminology down right. We teach them a whole system of gridding off. They have sketched and then they grid off the big board, and they have to, kind of blow up their smaller image onto the big mural. So there's a lot of different things that are covered, not to mention some vocabulary that they normally wouldn't have in regards to art and painting and techniques and such. And then we have, of course, the 21st century skills and themes, which is another thing you'll definitely cover in some of the Elevate courses. Obviously, there's a lot of collaboration going on, both face-to-face and virtual. They have to think, they have to constantly problem solve. Perhaps their biggest one is color blending and color mixing, which is kind of funny. That's one thing that they really kind of revisit, and they have to coach each other through, add a little more blue, add a little more red. Obviously, a lot of creativity taking place here. Technology literacy, information literacy, they have to look up a lot of these different techniques and make sure that they're, representing, if they're representing Diego Rivera by painting someone, they want to just kind of cross-reference. And so they're always pulling, whether it's a digital representation of an image, or if they're going to a good old-fashioned book and trying to replicate an image. Obviously, they have to be flexible because you've got 3 kids working on this one painting at one time, and some of them are there one day, not the next. There's a lot of learning to work with people, both online and face-to-face, and under different circumstances than just a usual classroom interaction sitting at a desk. Obviously, it takes a lot of leadership and responsibility on the part of the kid, and absolutely tons of global awareness. As you can see from the sample here, this one from this year, we had, I'm sure you can probably guess from here, it's the Trump wall. So they actually had their image of the Trump wall dividing the United States from Mexico being built from the Mexican side. They thought that was great. And of course, they had to have Hillary there. So it's just kind of interesting, the things that they come up with and how they connect the dots to things that are going on in their life with things that they've studied this year. So at this point, I'll open it up to any questions. I'm happy to provide any information. In the future, if you'd like to tackle a project like this, just feel free to email me with any questions, or if you need any other materials.
So remember to unmute your audio to ask questions. To unmute your audio, you just click on the slide where you can see your own picture, and then you should be able to unmute your audio. All right. I think Francisco is talking, but we can't hear you. Can you bring up your volume? Julie Evershed says, excellent project. Thank you for sharing it with us. You can also type in your question in the chat window. Francisco? Anybody else has questions? It's a bummer that we can't hear.
Hello?
Oh, hello.
Oh, what about materials? These murals were done with what, paint or crayons or what exactly?
Oh, that's a very good question. One of those simple things I neglect to mention. Actually, they're done from Dick Blick, which is an art source. We buy what's called chipboard, which is thin cardboard, but it's sturdy enough that it holds up. They're about 50 cents a piece. The whole project costs our department about $300 because we buy those for, like I said, groups of 3 students. So we buy about I think it's like 55 of them or whatnot each year. And then we buy just the student tempera paint, which is pretty cheap. It's not, and we get them in big pump containers and the kids just pump them, but it's just basic student tempera paint, the cheaper version, not the really nice, expensive version. And then we have different types of brushes, different selections for them to use. Some of them are actual, paint brushes. Some of them are more of a small roller or a foam brush. And then the kids get really creative. They use their hands. They like to finger paint a little bit. I find them taking things to add a little bit of technique and texture, because when they study the fresco concept, they know that they're not getting that bumpy image. So we work in the field house foyer. So a lot of them hop outside and get leaves or whatnot to try and add a little bit of texture to their final project as well, which is hard to see in the representations that you see there.
Were they actually doing all of this painting in class, or this is outside class or in the art department?
No, this is all out. This is during class time. We take our class on, we call it a mini field trip. We go down to our field house foyer, which is like a gymnasium, but it's the foyer kind of in front of where like a concession stand would be. So it's just an open space. And then we paint there. We put down tarps, those blue tarps that you see behind. We put down the tarps, and every class period, the kids come, their group of 3 meet, they mix the paints that they need, they paint what they need to paint. At the end of the hour, they clean up and they pop their mural in a drying rack. We have an archaic, because that's expensive. They're like $800. So we have an old one that I literally got, it's probably from the 70s, and it's a big dinosaur, and it's just an art drying rack. We pop them in there, and then the next day we get them out and they start all over again.
Let's see. We have a bunch of questions in the chat room. How long are your classes, Leigh? Are they 50-minute classes?
50 minutes, yes.
50-minute classes. And Jacqueline would like to know, how much time do you allow to introduce for introduction, production, and presentation?
Introduction.
To introduce the project, Jacqueline, you mean?
Oh, maybe that's what she means. Yeah. Right. We introduce the project. We spend about, I think it's 7 days covering the different muralists and the Mexican Revolution and the history thereof. Then we spend 1 day introducing the project itself, as far as asking them to revisit the past concepts and think about the muralism techniques. They get a day to kind of reflect and sketch and plan, and then they start we paint the boards white, actually, as like a base coat. Then they do the little mock-up gridding system to try and get their sketch onto the big picture, so to speak. And then they paint for 6 days, and then they get 2 days to finalize their presentation, which is the time in which they're doing the Thinglinks, and they're recording those different audios. They'll write a little bit. They took some of the sentences right off their blogs that they'd use. They integrated them together and kind of streamlined some different things. They added in additional sentences, and they recorded those, and then they started practicing as a small group during class, and then ultimately they presented. And it takes 2 days to present 9 projects.
And do you use a rubric with artistic techniques for the assessment? That's something you and I had talked about. How do you assess the artistic?
Right. I'm not sure if you put out in the original thing, the rubric. We don't, the kids always are worried. They're like, am I going to get graded on my artistic capabilities? And I say, absolutely not. The thing that we focus on here is, are they able to explain what they've painted and why, and how that represents the work of the different muralists. So for example, when they're presenting, if they're pointing to something that looks like a Diego Rivera native person, and they're not looking at the audience, the public or whatnot, they'll talk about that and say, well, that's because Diego Rivera painted people that way because, it was, I'm not thinking of the way I want to get it, but it's his representation of the people kind of being suppressed. So as long as they can justify what they painted and how it meets the different muralists and how they painted, whether it's the colors that they used or the tones that they used, or if they tend to use some of the more like silver tones. They talk about how that was more Orozco, or the bloody tones. Like they all talk about what they've painted. So they're kind of justifying it. So if I can't figure it out, they should be able to explain it to me.
Jacqueline would like to know whether you give direct instruction in the process.
In regards to the art, maybe? I'm wondering.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes, art. So we do I work with the art teacher, and we do a day where we present just muralism, the whole concept of murals, how they've evolved, and how they're in public places versus private places. I mean, we take them back to the Altamira Caves and how hieroglyphics was kind of like the early stages. The only formalized instruction we give them is the whole grid system, where she taught us, we teach them to take their paper rough drafts that they do, fold them up, open them up into a grid pattern, and then they just kind of visually mark off and make like a graph, and then they're able to kind of represent that to blow up their smaller picture to the larger picture. That's really formalized art that we give them at all, other than talking about the specific muralists and their different personal techniques.
All right. We have another question from Betsy. Great project. Can you talk a little bit about how the students collaborated? Were they self-directed, or was a lot done in class or on Thinglink? Did they set their own meeting times, or did they work independently, adding things as they each went along? So it was
yes, and yes, all of the above. There was a lot of, there's face-to-face, because we have 15-minute class periods. So they spent, like I said, 6 days painting. Then they had 2 days to work in class on the actual presentation itself. So they did collaborate face-to-face during class. Outside of class time, that was all asynchronous. They were going on to their blogs at different times, the Thinglinks at different times. Some kids would make a recording in class. Other kids didn't get to it because they were doing their writing and
story over here was on the ladies' side as Serena and Venus Williams.
The Olympic update?
everybody's on mute.
The last few years, Serena.
Okay.
There we go. Now I forgot what I was just saying. Yes, they collaborated both in class, face-to-face, and then through Blogger, they communicated outside of class when they were all helter-skelter in their different daily activities. And then they were able to do the Thinglink either from home or at school whenever they wanted to.
And then there's another question, which is about the blog post. Did you give the specific, how and when did you give the specific requirements for each post? And then the related question from Brenda, do you edit or correct their written language on Blogger as they're posting?
Okay. Oh, yes, absolutely. I did not edit any of their work. All their work was their own student work. I did not edit anything on Blogger. Other part of that. When did they get that? At the beginning of the project, each of their days. For day one, I had a different requirements as far as what they had to do. They had to talk about certain things. The first 2 days were very talking about the process and like why we painted it white and why we used the grid system. They had to address that. But then after that, they really just had to talk about what they painted and why. They had to have a post each day. I did not give them requirements as far as like how many sentences. They kept asking me, Ciara, how many sentences? How much do we have to write? I said, whatever you need to write, whatever quantity it takes to tell me what you painted and why. And they're pretty good with that. So some groups took it very simple. They just did 3 or 4 sentences. Others had more elaborate paragraphs. And that kind of was very natural between the types of overachiever kids and the ones that are just going to do what they need to do to get by. But I did not edit any of their work. I just let them post. It was supposed to be a free flow, just getting them to actually write something versus in the past when they just blew it off and they didn't write anything until those 2 days that they had to prepare for the presentation. Because then they've kind of forgotten, wait, why did we put that building there? Why did we use these colors? Why do we have a diagonal line in the middle? What was that supposed to mean? So it was just supposed to keep them accountable as they went along.
And Jacqueline would like to know whether you let students choose their own groups.
Oh, that's a really question. Yes, I do. I absolutely let them choose their own groups, predominantly because they are collaborating outside of class, and a lot of kids are not there. Like I said, with these AP testings, I'll have one kid God from this group. Some days I'll have the entire group is absent for one of the days. So I just find that they are naturally better in this particular project at just working out their own schedules and working together that way they can text each other if they have questions, or like, oh, did you do the update? It just kind of allows them to work in groups that they're really familiar with. Plus it's the end of the year, so they kind of have, gravitated toward groups that they can be successful with.
Brenda would like to know how much Spanish target language you use with Spanish 3 and how much with Spanish 4.
Target language. Spanish 4, the class is completely conducted in Spanish at all times. Spanish 3, I have not taught in a few years. I would probably say, I know it's supposed to be 90%, but I would say, I haven't taught it for a while. I know when I did, there's a lot of grammar in our personal, or in our level 3, so I can't really attest to that right now. I'm sure they're in the 80 to 90 range.
Betsy is asking whether you have time where they can reflect on their processes as well as their product choices that they're making.
Product choices that they're making. Well, the writing itself is supposed to be the reflection on what it is, and they tend to talk a lot in the groups. So there's a lot of thought that happens before they actually paint something. So I think that's kind of an ongoing, it's definitely a collaborative, reflective process. It's not individual really at all, except for perhaps maybe the writing that if an individual takes takes responsibility for certain sentences, they might, but for the most part, it's very much a collaborative group effort.
And let's see. I think this is it. If I forgot, how many students per group?
3 to 4. And that's just a physical limitation of the size of the board.
That makes sense. Okay, and then Francisco would like to do a similar project and is asking whether you'd be willing to help.
Of course. That's what email's for. No problem.
Betsy would like to know, what do the students say about the project?
They really do love it. And I think that's where my boss, God bless him, man, history teacher telling, me that the one thing I had to leave into the curriculum was this project. I think it's kind of fun. It is traditional. They really do love it. Like I said, they start panicking. They're like, Senora, I flunked kindergarten finger painting. I can't do this. And then it is art therapy because they're engaging their brain and their fingers and their tactical senses in ways that they just don't normally do. And it really comes at a great time in the year. And the kids are like, oh, they just relax. I just see them actually, just drop their guard a little bit. They're all kind of in a different position, and they're a little insecure about their artistic capabilities, but they just really kind of come together and embrace the challenge and embrace the moment. They really do have fun with it. And then they're having fun with the language too, because they're like, how do you say this? And how you say, wow, I never would have had to learn how to say that word if I wasn't painting right now, but now that I'm painting, it's a different context. So they really do like it. I have one student who is a huge, tall basketball player. I mean, we're talking, 6'9", I think he was. It was insane. And he complained every day about having to get down on the floor and do this. And he came back after graduating. He goes, yeah, I really did hate that project, but he's the only one. And he said it was really just, he hated having to get down on the ground every day because it was uncomfortable.
Jacqueline says, would it be possible for you to send us a list of authentic resources that you used throughout the project?
Oh, absolutely. I have a list of all the different books that our librarians purchased over the course of the years on the different muralists and some of the history as well. And then as far as, I'm trying to think what other stuff, I certainly could compile a list of some different things. I know right offhand I have the list of books. I could certainly send that out.
Thank you. Brenda says, great project, empowering for the students, and this is the type of project they will remember, and much reflection will come later when they're at the university.
Yeah, I've had a few kids say, can I take that with me? I'm like, I don't know how you're going to fit it in your dorm room, but knock yourself out. So, but I think it's fun that they have the pictures now. That's the one thing that's really kind of come over by integrating the technology is they really have this. And some of them were even setting it as their home screen. They thought it was really cool to have that to show their friends.
Yes, that's definitely ownership here. Brenda also asks, did their murals need to reflect current politics?
Not necessarily. Some teacher, like I said, there are 2 of us in Spanish 4. And throughout the course of this project, some years the other teacher has tried to only do modern topics. And we always kind of try to give them the autonomy. And that's where the one group, because we cover immigration, migratory workers, both legal and illegal immigration, and with the political culture right now, with the election year going on, it really just kind of lended itself naturally. Like I said, a lot of these kids take AP US history. this year. It's kind of just part general things. So they were connecting a lot of dots between their history courses, current events, and then what we'd studied in class. So I think that was just kind of a natural connection that came out of it. The other teacher did have a group asked to do a commentary on technology. So his group he did have one group that did that. So we do allow them, as far as if they're really passionate about something and they can use that, we don't stomp on their creativity at all.
Very nice. All right, if we don't have any more questions, and we do have a little bit more time for questions, I would like, I'm going to take over the screen. I will share the recording with you. It will take us a few days because we need to have it closed captions for ADA compliance. But we will share the recording, and I will also share the slides. And if you want to read more about the project, I'm going to take over the screen.
Oh, I forgot to mention the FLT Mag.
I got it. I just.
Oh, good. Okay.
In addition to running the Elevate program, I also have, I'm the founding editor of this magazine that you might know about. It's called the FLT Mag, the Language and Technology magazine. And the July issue just came out. It's a free magazine. It's called fltmag.com. It comes out 3 times a year, July, November, and March. And Leigh actually wrote an article on her project in the FLT Mag. So that's an additional way that you can learn about the project. Here you can actually see pictures of the kids working on their murals, which is really nice. And you can see some Thinglink examples, etc. So if you want to learn more about the project, this is what you can do. It's also a really good edition. There are a number of articles, and you can also go back and read the archives. There are really interesting articles about how to integrate technology in your classes. So I think we're done. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Do you guys have any more questions? Do you have any questions about the Elevate program, or I'm happy to answer them. Lost my windows again. What did I do? There. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to stop the recording now. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Voila. Oh, a question from Lauren. Lauren is asking whether we're considering offering a master's rather than just a certificate. That's a good question, Lauren. Yes, actually a lot of Elevate students right now would like to continue. We have a proposal. I'm going to probably reach out to you and to the IL community and brainstorm what a master's program would look like. But yes, it's on my mind. So we're working on the master's proposal. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Leigh. You're on mute. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, yes, I muted. I didn't want to. Don't forget to tune in if you want to hear more about the Elevate program on Thursday.
Oh, yes, that's true. We're doing a webinar on the Elevate program on Thursday. I'll send an email if you want to join us. We'll look at some sample courses, sample weeks. We'll look at the course management system that we use. We'll have 3 Elevate students, including Leigh, participate to the webinar if you want to ask questions to the students directly.
Yeah, it's an awesome program, and this project has just gotten so much better because of the work that I did through Elevate. So it's phenomenal.
All right. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and good luck if this is your first week back. Thank you.